All right, everyone, get ready. Because today we're going deep into something you might not think is that exciting at first, industrial monitors.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, after spending some time with this manual, I am seriously impressed.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at the IMD070M200.
Okay.
And this thing, well, it's built like a tank.
It really is.
Yeah.
If you need a display that's going to just laugh off dust, vibrations, maybe even, I don't know, a splash of something it shouldn't,
Yeah.
this is the one.
And that's what we're going to break down for you today.
Right.
Why this is not your average monitor.
Not at all.
So think of it this way. Imagine you need a screen that can run 24/7, no breaks.
Yeah.
In a place where, well, things can get a little rough.
For sure.
This is where this tough little guy shines.
Uh-huh.
So first impressions.
Yeah.
This manual keeps talking about this aluminum alloy body. Big deal. Or is it just marketing hype?
It's a huge deal, especially when you're talking about industrial environments. You've got factories, maybe construction sites, places where, well, things get bumped, dropped, you name it.
Yeah.
And maybe even exposed to some pretty nasty chemicals. Aluminum alloy. It's durable, it's lightweight, and it just shrugs off corrosion like it's nothing. It's peace of mind, really.
Okay, so not for my home office then.
Right.
Speaking of which, the manual mentions going beyond kiosks. Where else would someone actually use this monitor?
Oh, all sorts of places. Picture a busy factory floor, right? And this monitor is showing critical data to the machine operators.
Okay.
Or maybe a control room, like for a power plant, where every second is critical.
Yeah.
And this monitor is feeding them a steady stream of info.
Gotcha.
They even mention outdoor installations. Think like digital signage, the kind that can handle rain, snow, whatever.
Okay, starting to see the bigger picture. Now let's zoom in on the screen itself. 7 inches. With a resolution of 1024 by 600. I'm not, a tech expert
Really?
or anything. That doesn't sound super impressive these days.
Yeah, it's not going to blow you away with like crazy pixel density or anything.
Right.
But here's the thing. In an industrial setting, practicality trumps resolution almost every time. That screen size, that resolution, they're perfect for displaying what really matters. Clear, easy to read data, controls some basic graphics, plus, it helps keep the energy use down, which is a big deal when you've got a bunch of these things running 24/7.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But here's where I get kind of lost. The manual lists VGA, DVI, and HDMI for inputs.
Mm-hmm.
Why so many? Seems like they could have just picked one.
Ah, but that's the beauty of it. Remember we were talking about how industrial settings often have like a mix of old and new tech.
Right.
Having all those input types means this monitor can basically talk to anything.
So it's like a universal translator for all that industrial gear.
Exactly. It's all about flexibility, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be stuck in a situation where you can't get the info you need just because your display can't talk to the system. This monitor solves that problem.
All right, that's a great point. It's not about fancy graphics. It's about getting the job done and doing it reliably. Now, touch screens. The manual lists 3 options: no touch, capacitive, and resistive. Can you explain those for us?
Absolutely. So no touch, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You use buttons or external controls. Capacitive touch, that's what you're used to on your smartphone. Super responsive, supports multi-touch gestures, all that. But gloves can mess with it. Wet conditions, too.
And that's where resistive touchscreens come in.
Exactly. Think about working in a factory where gloves are mandatory. Resistive screens use pressure, so gloves are no problem. They're also really tough when it comes to dust and moisture. Might not be as sensitive as capacitive, but they're the workhorses you want in those rough environments.
So choosing the right touchscreen, it's all about knowing where it's going to be used, what kind of environment it's going to be in. It's really interesting how much goes into designing something like this.
It is, yeah.
Okay, I'm noticing some features in here that aren't super obvious at first, but they seem really important.
Mm-hmm.
Things like multilingual system language and an auto brightness sensor. What's the story there?
Those are great catches. And they say a lot about how versatile this monitor is. Multilingual system language. Think global.
Right.
This monitor can be used anywhere in the world, perfect for companies that have, operations all over.
Makes total sense. No more language barrier right out of the gate.
Exactly.
And what about that auto brightness sensor? That seems super handy.
It is. It adjusts the brightness of the screen automatically based on the ambient lighting. So if you're in a dimly lit control room or outside on a sunny day, you always get the best visibility.
Smart.
Plus, it helps reduce eye strain, which is huge when you're staring at a screen for hours.
Wow, it really is like they thought of everything.
It really did.
And speaking of thinking of everything, those environmental specs, The manual says it can operate from -10 degrees C to 60 degrees,
Oh.
and it boasts IP65 protection. Can you translate that for us normal folks? What does that actually mean?
So that temperature range, that means this monitor can handle some serious extremes. From a freezing warehouse to a scorching hot factory floor, it's good to go.
Wow.
And IP65 protection. That basically means it's totally sealed against dust and can withstand water jets from any direction.
So basically, this monitor laughs at extreme weather and dusty workshops. It's like the Chuck Norris of industrial displays.
That's one way to put it. But you're right, it's built for tough environments and just keeps on ticking no matter what.
It's amazing how all these features come together to create something that's so much more than just a screen. We talked about the obvious stuff, the durability, the way it connects, the image quality.
Right.
But it's these smaller details, like that IP65 rating and the multilingual system language, that really take this monitor to a whole other level.
I completely agree. It shows that real innovation, it's not always about some flashy new feature. It's about solving real-world problems in a smart way.
Totally agree. Which brings up a bigger question. How do you see this tech evolving in the future?
That's a good question. I think we're just getting started, honestly.
Yeah.
One thing that's really cool is how this monitor doesn't just survive in these harsh environments. It thrives in them.
Okay.
And one way it does that is with that optional upgrade, the 1,000 plus nit display.
Right. Remind me about that one. What makes it so special? Isn't brightness just, turning a dial?
It's way more than that. Think about those outdoor installations we talked about. Direct sunlight can wash out even the brightest screens.
Yeah, true.
But with the 1,000 plus nits, this monitor cuts right through the glare and you get crystal clear visibility no matter how bright the sun is.
So it's not just about cranking up the brightness, it's about staying clear and readable, even in those really tough conditions. That's impressive.
Exactly. It's all about making sure that critical information is always visible no matter what. And it's not just about sunlight either. Think of a factory floor, tons of lights overhead. This monitor can handle it.
When we started this deep dive, I thought we were just talking about a basic screen. But this is turning into a lesson on how to build things that last.
It is, yeah.
And it makes me think, how does it compare to, like, a dedicated industrial tablet? Wouldn't that give you even more to work with?
That's a great question. And the answer is, it depends on what you're using it for. Tablets are great if you need something portable, versatile, right.
Right.
But when it comes to pure toughness and reliability in one spot, a dedicated monitor like this one often wins.
So it's a trade-off then. You gain portability with a tablet, maybe some extra features, but you might lose some of that ruggedness that's so important in these settings.
Exactly. Right tool for the right job.
Yeah.
Speaking of tools, let's go back to something you mentioned earlier. Those smaller features in the manual.
Yeah.
You were talking about the multilingual system language and the auto brightness sensor.
Yeah, those stood out to me. They're small details, but they say a lot about how much thought went into making this monitor.
Totally. That multilingual system language, that's huge for global companies.
Yeah.
No more needing different monitors for different regions. No more scrambling to find language packs. This thing's ready to go anywhere.
It's like they're getting rid of that communication barrier from the start.
Exactly.
And the auto brightness sensor. It just seems like, well, common sense. Especially when you think about people looking at these screens all day long.
Right. It's not just about convenience. It's about keeping people comfortable and safe. Eye strain is a real problem.
For sure.
And this feature helps with that, making sure the screen's always at the best brightness.
So we've talked about how tough this monitor is, the screen, the connections, the different touch screens, even the smaller details that make a big difference.
Yep.
But is there anything else hiding in this manual that we've missed? Any hidden gems we should know about?
There is one thing that jumps out at me. And it goes back to what we were just talking about, keeping workers comfortable and safe. That IP65 protection rating. We talked about it a little, but I think it's worth another look.
Right. We kind of skimmed over that.
Yeah.
Remind us what it means and why it matters so much.
Sure. So IP stands for ingress protection. Basically, it's a way to describe how well a device is protected from dust and water.
Okay.
And IP65, that's a pretty great rating.
But what does that mean in real life?
Imagine a factory floor covered in dust, little particles floating everywhere. Or maybe you're in a food processing plant. Everything has to be spotless, and equipment needs to be washed down regularly.
Gotcha.
This monitor can handle it all. The 6 in IP65, that means it's completely dust tight. No particles getting in to mess with the electronics.
No dust bunnies in there.
Nope. And the 5, means it can withstand water jets, low pressure, from any direction.
So it's not just about surviving a splash, it's about being able to really clean it without worry.
Exactly. And that kind of protection is really important in a lot of industrial environments. It's just another part of what makes this display so reliable and long-lasting.
It's really incredible how all these features work together to make something that's so much more than just a screen. We talked about the big stuff. Yeah. How tough it is, the connections, the picture quality.
Right.
But it's these little details like the IP65 rating and that multilingual system language that really make this monitor stand out.
I couldn't agree more. It just shows that true innovation isn't always about shiny new features. It's about solving real problems thoughtfully.
Well said.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a bigger question. Where do we go from here? What's next for industrial monitors?
That's a fascinating question. Well, one thing that's really exciting is that all these advanced sensors they're putting in and data analytics.
Okay.
Imagine a monitor that can not only show you information, but it's also collecting data from all around it.
Look, what kind of data?
Temperature, humidity, how much it's vibrating,
Right.
and then it analyzes it all.
To do what?
Give you insights, right? Like how the machines are performing, if there are any maintenance issues coming up,
Oh, wow.
maybe even worker safety stuff.
So it's not just a screen anymore. It's like part of the whole process.
Exactly. It's part of that whole Industry 4.0 thing, smart factories, where everything is connected.
Right.
These monitors, they could be like the eyes and ears of the factory.
That makes sense.
Feeding back all this real-time info you can use to make things run better.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a game changer. Instead of like manual inspections or waiting for data, you've got this constant stream of information coming in.
Exactly. And it goes even further. Imagine these monitors using AI, algorithms that learn from the data, getting smarter over time.
Whoa.
They could start to predict problems before they even happen, help prevent things from breaking down, keep things running smoothly.
So we're talking about monitors that can see, hear,
Yeah.
and also think. It's like something out of a movie.
It is, kinda.
Mm.
And that's what makes this stuff so cool. The potential is huge. Who knows, maybe one day these monitors will even have, like, augmented reality built in, showing workers instructions right on the screen.
Okay, now that's just blowing my mind. It's crazy to think about how far we've come from those old, black and white screens. Now we're talking about smart, connected devices that are a core part of the industrial world.
And it all comes back to that solid foundation, the durability, the reliability, the attention to detail we've been talking about. That's what makes all these future advancements possible.
Totally. So to wrap things up for our listeners today, if you're in an industrial setting or even just curious about how technology is changing, keep an eye on this. Industrial monitors aren't just about showing information anymore. They're becoming essential tools for making things run better, improving safety, and driving innovation.
And like we saw with the IMD 070 M200, it's not about the flashy stuff.
Right.
It's about those core things, ruggedness, reliability, and adaptability. Those are what really make a difference in those tough environments.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as always, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those what-if questions. The future of technology is being shaped by people who can imagine what's possible.
Absolutely. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.